I'm Judianne Densen-Gerber. I am a psychiatrist and a lawyer and have been practicing since 1967. At that time, my major interest was in drug abuse, and I founded the Odyssey House programs across the United States, in Australia, New Zealand, and in Hong Kong. By 1985, however, I began to see a new phenomenon. And that phenomenon was that the patients that I was seeing, many of whom had dissociative disorders, post-traumatic stress, which I've talked about, but also multiple personality, and therefore could only remember fragments of what had happened to them, but these fragments were coming out in their 30s, began to remember ritualistic cult abuse. And to my sadness, having been a religious major in college, I realized that there were many people who used their children in the worship of the Prince of Darkness, Satan, Lucifer, Isis, which is an Egyptian princess of darkness, actually, married to the king of the underworld, and that we had many, many victims of this type of activity. Someone who had knew that this was my field and knew that there were implications of ritual and satanic cult abuse in the Nebraska Franklin Credit Union scandal and embezzlement of funds, and that the major witness in that, Paul Benassi, happened to be a victim himself at a very early age of child molestation, had been a boy prostitute, had been in porn pictures, had also, according to his statements, participated in 5 cult murders, and was a multiple personality, very much like Sybil is the one that I'm sure most people will know, 3 Faces of Eve, that because he was a multiple personality, and since I was an expert in dissociation and multiplicity, would I see him for the purposes of whether or not he was credible. As I got to know more about Benassi, and he wrote me letters, and I listened to his descriptions of the rites of the different sects that he had been in, of the killings, of who performed the fetal Eucharist, which is the actual drinking of the blood and eating or cannibalizing of the child or the newborn or the abortus, or an adult in some instances. I discovered that everything he said fit into, one would say, the traditional rites of the Antichrist sects. It would be the same in Rome, and in England, and in France, and in Australia, and in China, and wherever Roman Catholicism were practiced. Well, the Satanists do the same thing, so that when they are performing certain rites, they have the dagger, and it's a similar dagger throughout the world, with which they do the killings. They have the communion plate, which has certain markings on it. They have the chalice. They have the stilo or stiletto, with which a newborn's child is punctured. Heart is punctured by the mother, actually, of this child. And that mother can be as young as 12 or 13, which is very frightening. And then she draws out that blood. There is other rituals which he discussed. And only certain priests or certain levels in the hierarchy are permitted to do those rituals, and he knew every single ritual correctly and who was to do them. So there was no doubt in my mind that he had intimate personal knowledge.